Cathy Johnson is one of the other actresses in this production, one of the local people from Flint who's working in the production. Cathy, in last week's show, you didn't really have a chance much to talk about your character. You want to tell us a little bit more about her?
Sure. I play the character Rose, and she is a very inside person who is very powerful in her own right, but she doesn't really know it. But with the help of Virginia, who is played by Shel Giannini, through the counseling, she's able to work through some of the things that she thought were problems, and she's able to go back because she's one of the ones who leaves. But she was more concerned about the other women in the shelter because they've all gone crazy, and she was wondering if she was going to go crazy too. But the reassurance of Virginia letting her know that if you were going to go crazy, you would have. And through other sessions the same night with Cheryl, she works through a lot of her own dilemmas that really weren't dilemmas, that a lot of women, when they become homeless or abused, that they have the power to leave and really don't know it. And one of the things that Rose says is that she was scared. And many women in abused situations are scared for one reason or another. They may not know why they're scared. They're just scared to leave, either from the man's threatening or thinking she can't make it on her own or whatever the circumstance might be. But Rose does leave, and she has children that she has to go and get, and she goes to get them. Plus she has a fight with the intruder. And
the male intruder, right?
Yes, and she tries to kill him because she's so angry. She has so much anger built up in her that she does try to kill this man. And there's a baby in the shelter who really triggers a thought in her that releases this man from her death grip, and she lets him go. But she's also the protector of Virginia in the production also, because every time Virginia hollers, "Here comes Rose," and she does leave. And so it lets the audience know that some of them can function outside of the shelter with a little help.
Before I move on to another cast member, Cathy Johnson, I wanted to give you a chance to mention a production that you're staging at McCree Theater that's coming up in the next few months.
No, we're not staging a production. We have a traveling production of 5 young ladies who are teenagers in the Flint school system. And they worked together with me and helped to write and develop and research the script material that they are doing. So it's basically them doing the writing and me putting it into some type of content. And we've been traveling throughout the school system and the churches in the city of Flint to also enlighten about the problems that gangs and drugs are having, not only on families but on the community as a whole. And they do a very, very fine job of it. And we'll be doing it again July 27th and 28th at the University of Michigan.
What's the show called?
It's called One Way In, No Way Out. And one of the characters in this particular production also gets killed. And it's one of the finest students in the group. And that particular student does get killed by a senseless drive-by shooting. And the teachers are readily appalled by it because he was an all-A student. But one of the other teachers resolved by saying, well, if he was that smart, he shouldn't have got involved in it in the first place. And these 5 young ladies play a gamut of roles. They play the male gang members, the female gang members, the parents, the teachers, and I don't believe there's any other ones, but I might be missing one.
But they play the whole cast, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, they play the whole thing.
That's One Way In, No Way Out?
Right.
Okay, and we'll be looking for that around Flint in the next few months. Joe Mishler, Joseph Mishler. You had a few ideas last week that you didn't have a chance to talk through. Talking about the whole idea of the production of Helter Shelter. What do you draw from your participation in this show?
Well, first, for me, it's kind of unique to work with all women. I find it very fascinating. I agree with Mary. The level of skill and the professionalism displayed on the stage is excellent. And what I really like is everybody helping everybody behind stage, on stage. I like the fact that we come before the show and we have to help set up, and then after the show we have to tear down. About the play itself, it really, for me, is kind of a real awareness, and I hope that for a lot of the men in the audience, that it's a real awareness of this, of the problem with battered women, the problem with homeless people. Those problems are really serious problems, and they're not easily solved, and they're very complex. And I know it's real easy maybe not to think about those things, but this play has brought it, for me, it just brought it directly in front of me. Like I said on the last show, when I first read the script, I got angry. Mm-hmm. And when I first couple rehearsals, I'd come here and I'd listen to part of the script, and I'd leave here and I'd be really angry. Geez, how can people be treated like this? And what are we going to do to help them? So as far as the play, it's really an awareness that this problem exists. It's not a very easy problem. The other thing that I've become more aware of is the fact that when Betty Chappell worked in this clinic, there were very few solutions or alternatives for women. There were very few places they could go to. The government, for the most part, really doesn't want to deal with the problem. Local authorities don't want to deal with the problem. The police, for the most part, don't want to deal with the problem. So the solutions and the alternatives are very limited. And that is one thing that maybe through this play, we can create a wider awareness and maybe create more alternatives and more solutions for these people.
When you think about your own life and what things you can do, most of us go through life without being confronted by as much drama as this play portrays. But one of the things that always strikes me is in your daily conversation, how you can be aware of language, how you use language, and how other people around you use language, and the sort of jokes or comments that may be meant lighthearted yet carry the threat of violence and the acceptance of violence. And I think that one of the things that men can do in their conversation and involvement with other men is to be aware of that language and what they say means, and not to let things like that just go by without recognition.